What's going on, everybody, and welcome back to the John J Gaming channel, where we are here today starting a brand new series. That's right, we're doing a Maximum Football 2020 Dynasty, and more importantly, we're doing the ACSA, the inaugural season, going with that preseason episode here today, man. So it's going to be excited, so make sure you smash that like button as well as hit subscribe if you do happen to be new. Also, in the meantime, if you want to get a bigger depth of each team here in the ACSA, make sure you go and check out, the ACSA team reveal playlist that will be linked down in the description below, as I do go after all 130 teams in this dynasty here on Maximum Football 2020 that are going to be customized. Now, I know what you guys are probably thinking, Jake, what does the ACSA stand for? Well, it stands for the American Collegiate Sports Association, a college football sim league with 130 teams. You'll only be seeing CPU versus CPU matchups during the course of this series. Matter of fact, the only thing that I'm going to be controlling personally is the recruiting for the team that I did decide to pick, because I did have to pick one team, and you already know I gotta rock with the Bluffton Tech Fighting Muskrats in the Big North Conference. So I'm going to be rocking with them during the course of this dynasty. With that being said, though, let's go ahead and see the top 25, the official unveiling for the inaugural season of the ACSA. So starting things off, we have the top 8 teams in the ACSA for this preseason. Gonna start things off with Alabama Hoover coming in number 1 in the country. Following them is Super South teams in Coastal Alabama and Central Georgia A&M. Number 4 is Warwick from the Atlantic Shore Conference, and then we have other Super South teams. We have Capital Tennessee, Southern Alabama State, Mississippi A&M, and then Chattanooga Tech is rounding out the top 8. Now, I will say this about the top 8 polls. Again, this is just my initial reaction to when I first saw it. You want to talk about the SEC bias in FBS college football. That bias is definitely real for the Super South Conference. You'll notice right away, 7 of the 8 teams that were in that top 8 are all from the Super South Conference. The only exception is Warwick University from the Atlantic Shore. They're coming in at number 4, which, begs two questions really. Is it possible that 2 Super South teams can make it to that final playoff competing for national championship? And can all of them remain in the top 25, since they'll have to all play each other eventually, most likely? So I think it's definitely possible that 2 Super South teams can make it. I think I can see a scenario where, if 2 teams don't happen to play each other in conference play and they go to, conference championship game, they're both undefeated, you can definitely make the argument that a one-loss Super South team that doesn't win this conference could make it to the playoff without winning their conference championship, with how high regards being at the start of the season. Now, with that being said, though, are all of these teams going to remain in the top 25? Obviously not. They're going to beat each other up, and the losses are eventually going to pile up for one of these teams. Who that be? And I'm not saying it's because they're a bad team. I don't think, it's just going to be really hard to maintain that if you're number 8, but you're number 7 in the conference, for example. So I'm looking at like a team like Southern Alabama State or like a, Chattanooga Tech that might disappoint this upcoming season and, fall out of the top 25 despite being so highly regarded in the preseason. Moving on, though, we do have, the 9 through 16th ranked teams in the initial top 25 poll, where number 9 is coming in as Bluffton Tech, followed by Lebanon and Florida Tech from the Atlantic Shore Conference. Then we have a bunch of Big North teams such as Eastern Penn, DeKalb A&M, Southfield, Indiana Fulton, and Detroit State, rounding out this portion of the top 25 poll. One thing you can say for sure is that the Big North will be viewed as the consensus second best conference, with a bunch of these teams, in that upper echelon of the top 25 poll, following of course the Super South with 7 teams in the top 8. I do think that Bluffton Tech was a little bit disrespected. I think they're a lot better than number 9. I think this is a team that could potentially be a top 5 team that competes for the national championship. And the fact that they're ranked number 9, I'm sure those boys are going to definitely be pissed off for sure, going into this upcoming season. But there's still going to be some tough competition in the Big North that they're going to have to deal with. However, I do think that they are a potential dark horse to win this national championship game at the end of the day. And then finally, to round up the top 25, we have, a nice dose of teams. We got BGC from the Super South Conference. Then we also have some Super Southwest teams showing up, like Southern New Mexico, Texas Catholic, as well as Phoenix State and Sugar Land State, rounding out that top 25. Also a handful of other teams like Madison from the Big North, Kent and Herbert Hoover from the Atlantic Shore Conference as well, and the only top 25 team from the Big Pacific Conference, a Power 5 conference I want to point out, is Spokane Tech, coming in at number 23. Now, I'm looking at this list, and one team to really keep an eye on, I want to say, is not a team that's from in this top 25 poll right now, but I think can definitely make some noise. Watch out for Oaksterdam University. They're not ranked in the top 25, but I think they're going to be one of the best teams in the Big Pacific Conference. And when you're the best team in a Power 5 conference, that's always going to get consideration to make it to the football playoff at the end of this season. And so Oaksterdam's not on this list, so definitely keep an eye on them. Also watch out for Spokane Tech. They can be pretty good as well. I think I would not be shocked if they jump to the top 10 at the end of this season, for example. So for this conference, as well as for the Stars and Stripes conference after this, I brought in a little bit of help, for bringing down these conferences. So without further ado, let me introduce you guys to my boy King Expressions Gaming. Bro, welcome to this preseason episode of the ACSA. How are you doing, bro?
Man, thank you so much for having me today, JJ. I appreciate it, John Jake. Y'all don't know I call John Jake JJ. He's like a brother to me. Love this guy. He's amazing, man. I'm just thankful to be here. Appreciate you inviting me. And like I say, all I can really say is thank you, man. It's been special to collab with you. Hopefully we can do much more.
So I will have to say that it is always hard to tell, who exactly is going to really separate themselves with this being the very first season of the ACSA. All these teams coming together. But if you absolutely had to pick today, who are you picking to win this Sunshine Conference at the end of the day, bro?
Yeah, if I had to choose any team in the Sunshine Conference that I think that would win, I would have to go with Northern Virginia Angels. They have a ton of seasoned upperclassmen that are ready to ball. They're gelling as a team. They have chemistry, and we all know that a lot of team sports, you have to have chemistry, have to be clicking at the right time. So for Northern Virginia, this is something that's going right under the rug for everybody in that division. Other people may have much more skilled players, but Northern Virginia is definitely a team that I think could win this division easily. And also, being owner of the Louisiana A&M, the LAMU Angels, I got a thing for rooting for Angels. So, I mean, come on, man.
Yeah, I'm certainly not surprised you rock with the Angels because you did have that LAMU Angels Dynasty, which I did have that custom recruit in back in the day. So no surprises that you're rocking with Northern Virginia in this case. But, that being said, is there another team in this conference that maybe isn't getting as much attention, but they should be getting that attention? And, what is that team? If there is any of those out there.
If I had to say anybody, it would be the Richmond Poly Demons. I honestly could say that this team, people would underestimate them in games, and they would win games they aren't supposed to win. And that would put them in the right position. Deion Allen and also Jason Hamilton, those guys are going to be ready to ball at running back. And also, I truly believe that Chris Mays will have, he's going to be ready, bro. He's really just going to be ready because as a freshman last year, he played well, but he wasn't that versed in the offense with a year under his belt. I'm not saying he's going to win the Heisman or anything, but I'm telling you, this guy has a chip on his shoulder, and he's coming. He's coming in his sophomore campaign, I promise you.
So with that being said, let's go on to the Stars and Stripes Conference now. And King Expressions, I want to ask you, man, is there any teams here that can not only make noise at the conference level, but also do the same thing at the national level, going into this inaugural season of the ACSA?
So as far as teams that I think, can make some, national attention, make some national waves, and also win their conference, I really would have to say the Savannah Bison. CJ Smith is real physical and speedy wide receiver. He kind of reminds me of DK Metcalf. Sebastian Young is, he's coming into his own. He's got a chip on his shoulder, and also Dion Burton has a lot, to prove after last season. People are going to think, people have been saying that this guy was a one-hit wonder at DB. So he's got that chip on his shoulder. He's looking to back it up. People have called him out, and he's going up against one of the best wide receivers in the nation during practice. So, I mean, dude, I'm telling you, I really feel like the Savannah Bisons are on their way to a very successful season, and not just in their conference, nationally.
All right, so I know you have a lot of love for Savannah, but you think there's some other teams that might be a dark horse to win this conference, in this inaugural season as well, or just Savannah?
Man, this is a tough one, because I literally just picked the Savannah Bisons, but I'm gonna have to go back into that same division, and I would say the Tulsa Christian Pioneers. I feel like they have a good chance. Again, another team flying under the radar. JJ DeVolve, and he's an NFL prospect. He's just waiting to explode. And then you look at John Lagamore. John Lagamore is the quarterback of that defense, and I don't see a situation other than disregarding injury, knock on wood. I don't see John Lagamore taking a step back. If anything, I see him becoming more into himself, being a much more assertive player, and quarterbacking that defense. And then you also got to look at Jordan Hill and Troy Holt. Come on, man. Players like Troy Hill and Jordan Holt, they don't just pop up out of thin air. You feel me? So that's my take. That's what I would say. All right. I could be wrong, but hey, we gotta wait and see. We just have to wait and see.
Thank you once again to my boy King Expressions Gaming. His link will be down in the description if you want to go ahead and check out his channel after this video. He has some really good content over there, and he deserves all the love, here from the John J Gaming channel. So check out his channel after this video and let him know that John J Gaming sent you as well. In the meantime, though, let's go ahead and jump into this next conference that we have here, the Rocky Mountain Conference, which is the maximum football equivalent of the Mountain West. Got some solid teams in there, some teams that are rugged and tough. So gonna be one of those things where you're gonna really see a lot of like grinding of the clock, some low scoring games, teams really trying to shove the ball on each other. But with that being said, look out for Pacific Tech, man. Pacific Tech, don't be fooled by those colors and those uniforms from the Rocky Mountain ACSA team reveal episode. This is a really good football team. Like, no holds barred. Like, this is a Power 5 caliber team that just happens to be in the Rocky Mountain Conference. They are heads and shoulders above everyone else. Would not be shocked whatsoever. In fact, I am betting my life savings that Pacific Tech wins this conference. Now, with that being said, I'm looking down at the Rocky Mountain as well, and a team that is being a little bit overlooked as well is gotta check out the Marbleton Cardinals, man. They in the team poll, they're like about midway through the they're about mid-tier in the Rocky Mountain, but I think they're better than that. This is a very tough team in a tough grind kind of ground and pound kind of conference. Look for Marbleton to also make some noise as we go into this brand new season for the Rocky Mountain Conference going forward. So after that, we now have the National Athletic Conference, which is the maximum football equivalent of the American Conference in actual college football. So, just take a quick look at what's going on in the National Conference. Looking at, who could potentially come out as the conference champion of the National Conference. this really is a two-team race. I'm looking at Breckenridge and Vienna really going out there and, be the top of this national conference. I want to give a slight edge to Vienna. I think that they have, a better core, that's more well built for bigger games, for, later season down the road. They might struggle early on, but the potential is certainly there to surpass Beckett Ridge, but if none of these teams grow, actually if none of the teams grow in the national conference, gotta start with Beckett Ridge, as the favorite, but watch out for Vienna as well. Another team that I also want you guys to watch out for going into this season is the Clinton Knights from the state of New York. They may not necessarily win the conference, but they have the right pieces in place, to go ahead and, make some upsets in the top 25 pool and potentially get there themselves, depending on how things go for them. As I'm looking at this team, they're not ranked in the top 25, but they have what they need to really make some change, and they have an opportunity to do so from the jump. Their first week, for example, they're playing the 21st ranked Charlotte State Kings, so they have an opportunity right there to prove themselves against a top 25 caliber football team in the first week of the season. So speaking of which, we actually have the Atlantic Shore Conference up next. Not only having the Charlotte State Kings, here in the that we talked about in the previous portion over for the National Conference. We got some really good teams here as well, such as Warwick, got Charlotte State, like I just mentioned. Then also Florida Tech, Herbert, Hoover, and Kent are also notable teams that are ranked here in the top 25. Now, the Atlantic Shore, Warwick is the highest ranked team. They're ranked number 4 in the country, and I think they can make a run for the national title as well. But with that being said, also watch out for Herbert Hoover. I think they're grossly undervalued, coming in ranked, just barely in that top 25. I think they're sitting at number 22, 23, somewhere in that range, So they are criminally underrated to begin this season. And Herbert Hoover could also, make a run for the national championship from that Atlantic Shore Conference as well. On the other hand, I think there's some other teams that, think that won't compete for national title this season, but they can make a run within the Atlantic Shore. I think Florida Tech is one of those teams. I think maybe that number 11, it might be a little high for Florida Tech going into this season, but at the same time, they have some guys that do have raw talent. They just need to really grow and develop as a team, since it is one of the younger squads in the Atlantic Shore Conference. They're going to be really good in future seasons. They're going to be national contenders, I'll tell you that. I just don't think it will be this season, but look for them to be deep in the mix going into Season 1 of the ACSA Dynasty within the Atlantic Shore Conference. Transitioning over to the next conference that I have on this list, I have the Big Southwest Conference up next, where we got some teams in here, man. We definitely have some solid football teams on this list. Teams like Southern New Mexico, Texas Catholic, can't count out Phoenix State or Sugar Land State, which is probably, they have one of my favorite uniform sets in the whole dynasty. I love how Sugar Land State's uniforms turned out. But that being said, if there's a team that I think could potentially dominate this conference, I'm looking at Texas Catholic, man. Everything is bigger in Texas, and we talk about how Texas, being back, imagine the fandom of Texas Catholic. They've been waiting for this moment for a long time to prove themselves in a league like the ACSA, and I think they're going to really step up here in the Big Southwest Conference and dominate within this first season. Now, with that being said, if there's someone that could pose as a potential nightmare, in terms of matchups for, Texas Catholic, I'm looking at a team like Sugar Land State, who's just barely made it to the top 25. They're coming in number 25 in the country, so not necessarily a lot of noise coming in, and even as like the 4th best team in the Big Southwest. So they're looking at Sugar Land as a mid-tier team in this conference. Now, whether that makes them top 25 or not, that's up for you, the viewer, to decide. But man, they could be a potential nightmare, because Sugarland State, man, they do love to have a pretty balanced attack, and I think we're going to see that early and often over the course of this young season. Transitioning over to another Power 5 conference, we have the Big North, which is the equivalent of the Big Ten within Maximum Football 2020. In the Big North Conference, there's some teams in that, second pack of top 25 teams. Teams like, in Eastern Pennsylvania, Bluffton Tech, DeKalb A&M, Southfield, Indiana Fortin, and Detroit State, all being highly regarded, and they can live up to that billing potentially. The Big North, maybe not all of them being top flight teams, but they can sure, belong in the top 25. Wherever they stay at their current spots, that's up to be debated. I talked about earlier how Bluffton Tech rated at number 9 in the country this preseason. I thought that was a criminal underrated, thing to do, with Bluffton Tech having one of the best rosters in the entire ACSA, at least top 5. Whatever you want to do, number 1, replace Alabama Hoover over, Bluffton Tech, or Bluffton Tech over Alabama Hoover. That could be a little bit more controversial, but Bluffton Tech is going to be a playoff team. I'm telling you that right now. Maybe I'm just a little biased, Bluffton Tech being my favorite team personally. It was something that was created by one of my IRL friends, but Bluffton Tech, man, they're gonna win this conference. They're gonna win, at least be in the deep mix to win the national championship. I'm telling you right now, watch out for Bluffton Tech. They're gonna be pissed starting off at number 9. Now, on the other hand, is there another team that could challenge these guys? I'm looking at, maybe like a Southfield or an Indiana Fortin. The Whitetails, the Whitetails have always done a good job historically. Just watch TNJ's Wisconsin Whitetails series, is all you need to know. So just based off of that, Indiana Fortin, I think, could be the biggest threat. Also, being a cross-state rival for Bluffton Tech, in the future, they're going to compete for the best prospects, in the state of Indiana and also in the state of Ohio. So, watch out for Indiana Fortin. I think they play second, but this conference is going to certainly be interesting, with all of those teams, ranked between 9th and 16th going into the inaugural season. Moving on to the Group of 5 counterpart to the Big North Conference, we now have the Midwest Conference, and they might have the biggest spread in all of college football, at least in the ACSA. Teams here in this Midwest Conference, only 12 teams, ranging from Idaho all the way to Vermont. So definitely taking that northern part of the country right there, with a bunch of Midwest teams in the middle as well. A couple of stragglers, but hey, it is what it is though. So looking at this Midwest Conference, this is what I'm looking at, in terms of who I think, might potentially go out and win it all, this upcoming season. For Midwest, who I'm really looking at, is a team like Central Tech, who seems like they're not the most talented team, on this roster, but at the same time, man, I have to say, like, Central Tech, they got a good group of guys, up there, for that Central Tech football team, and they might not be picked to win. Brandon and Kearney College were the top 2 within the Midwest Conference coaches to win at the end of the day. But with that being said, I think Central Tech could potentially win this conference with the core that they've assembled. And more information on Central Tech, I did note that in my Midwest team reveal. If you want to check out those team reveals after this video, get more in depth with each individual squad. Now, with that also being said, Brooklyn University, they're towards the bottom of the Midwest, but at the same time, they look like they have a solid squad, not, probably one of the least talented teams in the Midwest, but they play extremely hard. Probably one of the most hardworking teams, in the entire conference. So with hard work alone, you can only do so much with hard work. I know they say hard work beats talent if talent doesn't work hard, but to a degree, you do actually need talent to be successful in the ACSA. So that being said, Brooklyn might not win the conference, but they're going to surprise some teams in the Midwest as well going into this upcoming season. Now from the Midwest, we go to the northwestern part of this country we find the Big Pacific Conference, where despite the fact that they are considered a Power 5 conference within the ACSA, they were really disrespected in the polls this upcoming season. At least for the preseason, they had one team in the preseason top 25, and that preseason team was Spokane Tech, who came in at number 23, so they almost didn't make it either, you know, so that's just criminal that they left, you know, Spokane Tech, you know, nearly out of the top 25 as well, and so is these other teams, you know, so I think there's going to be more than one team, certainly. I'm looking at like 2 to 3 teams at least, you know, be guaranteed top 25, with a couple others that, you know, could potentially make a run. You know, Spokane Tech being one, obviously, but Oaksterdam wasn't even ranked in the top 25, and I'm going to be honest with you guys, I think they're the most talented roster in this entire conference, the Big Pacific. You know, they just have to stay disciplined. You know, that's really their biggest problem. You know, if Oaksterdam can maintain their discipline, they can go forth and really have a successful season because they can reach their full potential with all of their guys being on the field at the same time. Can they take care of business off the field, though? That's my biggest question with Oaksterdam. Now, I will say Spokane Tech, you know, will be a top 25 team, of course. I mean, no big surprises there. But, you know, I'm also looking at Tacoma State. I'm surprised Tacoma State wasn't, you know, put in the top 25 as well. Look for them to really make a difference, you know, both at the conference and national level going into this upcoming season. And the final team that's going to get a preview is the Super South Conference. I talked about it in the top 25 segment. There are 8 teams total that are ranked in the top 25, you know, from the Super South Conference, and 7 of them are ranked in the top 8. If that is not biased towards one conference, I don't know what is, because I don't see 8 teams being ranked, you know, at the end of the day. You know, particularly, you know, in that top 8, you know, how are you going to tell me you're the 5th best team in the Super South Conference but ranked number 6, for example? You know, not saying that Mississippi A&M, you know, isn't going to be very good, you know, but, you know, I have some questions. And same thing with Central Georgia A&M. They're coming in number 3, you know, and also coincidentally the 3rd best team in this conference. You know, I don't know. Central Georgia A&M, it seems like one of those teams that, you know, is a really good team. I'm not saying that they aren't really good, but they could be. They're just not focused all the time, you know. And at the end of the day, you have to be focused. You know, can't take some of these teams in the Super South Conference for granted because it is really good. But 8 ranked teams? Are you serious right now? 8 ranked teams? That being said, though, it's no question that Alabama Hoover is the best team in this conference. They have the best roster in college football. You know, certainly a top 3 roster for sure, playoff caliber. So I think Alabama Hoover might be the only guaranteed lock right now. If Alabama Hoover is not in the playoff, I'm going to be extremely shocked going forward. But, you know, 8 ranked teams, though, I don't think there's going to be 8 ranked teams. I wouldn't be surprised if like, for the final poll, there's like 5 from the Super South Conference, you know, because I do think that it's a little bit overrated, especially with 7 teams from the Super South being in the top 8. You gotta be kidding me, dude. Alright guys, so now that we made it through all of the teams in this ACSA preview, let's go ahead and jump into, you know, the games that will be showed for week 1 of this ACSA Dynasty. And I am going to break it into 3 parts. There's going to be 10 games that are always going to be shown each individual week. And if there's a top 25 matchup, there will be a standalone day for that specific game. You know, get some ACA primetime action, but there's no top 25 matchups this week, so I am going to divide it into 3 parts. Part 1 will be on Monday, Part 2 will be on Wednesday, and then Part 3 will be on Friday. So, and another thing too, if my schedule looks a little different from the beginning of the video, it's just because the content update did make me delete my data, and then I had to re-put in all the teams. So that's why the schedule looks different for week 1, but we got all the teams back in here. So now let's go ahead and see what these teams are all about, what we got going for week 1. So the first game that we have is the Southfield Dalmatians going on the road to play against the Brooklyn Wolves from the National Conference. After that, on Monday in this part 1, we have the Lincoln Fighting Salt from the Big North Conference also going on the road to play against the Brandon Bears, representing the Midwest Conference as well. Should be an interesting matchup for sure. After that, we wrap things up with week 1 with this matchup between Anchorage Tech and the Marbleton Cardinals, as that'll be an interesting matchup for sure. Marbleton representing the Rocky Mountain Conference, and then Anchorage Tech, I believe, are in the Big Pacific, so that should be a pretty good game to watch, as that will wrap up week 1. Part 2, we have the Ron Burgundy Anchormen playing up against the Alaska Beluga Whales, and will be a frozen tundra to start part 2. After that, we have the Wyoming Yellowstone Mounties going on the road to play the Maui Piranhas, representing the unaffiliated teams out there in the ACSA Dynasty. Following that performance, we have the Sugar Land State Cowboys, who are coming in ranked number 25 in the country, playing up against the Tulsa Christian Pioneers. Moving into the third game of part 2. On the Wednesday episode, we have the 21st ranked Charlotte State Kings facing the Clan New York Knights in what should be a very interesting matchup, as they are a very underrated team from the National Conference. So scratch that actually is part 3. This is actually part 3 for Friday, but it is what it is. For the second part of the Friday episode, we'll have the Rugby Boilermakers taking on the Philadelphia Tech Black Mambas. And then for the final game of week 1 that will be shown here on this channel, we have the number 5 ranked Capital of Tennessee Bulldogs going to play against the Northern Virginia Angels from that Virginia Athletic Conference. So with all of that being said, I hope you guys love the content here on this channel. You know, if you're excited for more ACSA content on Maximum Football 2020, do me a favor, smash that like button as well as hit subscribe if you happen to be new. This is John G Gaming on the mic, hoping you all have a wonderful day. Take care, everybody.